I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Brian Koberger was arrested this morning in a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What is up, you salty mofos? Welcome back to the DT show. Hope you guys are doing great this week. It is Thursday, man, close. It's Friday Junior. Tomorrow will be the big day. It'll be the weekend. Looking forward to this weekend. It's been a long week so far. And I got a couple of things planned, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to see the family. They're coming up. And so that'd be great. And, got a great day planned all day Sunday. Steelers don't play it until the evening. So me, the wife, and the little one are going to head out to a couple of amusement parks, things of that nature, and enjoy the day. So I'm looking forward to this weekend. I hope you guys have a safe one. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Today, we're going to get back into the Lilly and Jack Sullivan disappearance. So RCMP has responded this time again, double downing on the neighbor. And we're going to talk about that. Cameras don't lie. One of the things that they're saying is that there's some cameras that are in the area that they were able to surveil. Now, they have a few cameras. I have some images from a few of the cameras from the area. I'll show you some of those images today from around the time that something passed by in front of these houses. Now, I'm not going to disclose where they are because I don't want anybody going out and harassing anybody or anything like that. And so we're just going to look at the pictures. Fortunately, a lot of that area isn't easy to find because there's a lot of trees. Everything kind of looks the same. But I do have images from video. These are screenshots of video of some of the cameras that are in the area right off of the roadway as well. So you can kind of see if anybody's driving down that street or around there, you can be able to tell when they pass by. And so we'll look at those things. But first, and I kind of noticed something in the live chat, and I wanted to bring this up. Some folks have said that I believe Daniel, which I have to say this every time. I don't necessarily believe Daniel. Me and Daniel disagree on a lot. I probably agree with more with those who disagree with me about Daniel than they believe. But I also strongly believe in evidence. I also strongly believe in the evidence and the investigation and things of that nature. And so what I believe is the RCMP and what they've put out there and the information that they put out there based on the investigation that they've been able to put out there as well, which are all things that typically wouldn't be shared if they had some sort of suspicion that Daniel Martell was a suspect in this crime. Now, I know there's a difference between being an official suspect and also the suspicion aspect. So if they suspected Daniel Martell, I strongly believe that a lot of the information that had came out about the investigation against them probably wouldn't have came out. And so, there are certain things that law enforcement are doing and that they are saying that make me believe what I believe. It's not necessarily Daniel Martell. But I do find it funny that the same people that are saying to me that I stick with Daniel because he talks with me are the same folks who believe that boss man number one is Bradley Wong. Now, this was on a channel called Clutch and Pearls or something like that. And this is supposedly Bradley Wong. Now, Bradley goes on to say, because people were talking about them lying, no, they didn't lie about the vehicle. Now, these folks are siding with this person just because they believe he's Bradley Wong. Now, I don't know, maybe he self-identifies as a they, and that's why he's saying, no, they didn't lie about the vehicle. This don't sound like that. Now, maybe this is his spouse, maybe this is Mrs. Wong, or maybe this is, Bradley, and he just talks in a weird way, talks about himself as they. But no, they didn't lie about the vehicle. And the crazy thing is there are a bunch of channels in there. Like they had talked about one thing about referencing the trains that pass by. Mr. Bossman says they pass by at least 3 times a day. And I saw these other persons in there like, oh, I thought it was 1 or 2, but you would know more than me. And I'm thinking to myself, what makes you think that person is Bradley? I asked Sonny from It's a Crime and Shame, because she also believes that this is Bradley, if she's confirmed it. And the answer was no. I asked her if she's messaged him or if anything. And the only response she told me was that she could tell based off of him saying, I'm assuming it's a him and it's also Bradley, that making some comments about his house being out there. And I was thinking to myself, like, who's the person that brought up Bradley Wong first? I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was me. I started in this case a lot later than everybody else. So if I knew about Bradley Wong, I'm wondering why, is it possible that other people knew about him beforehand? I'm pretty positive, because I had a lot of people telling me about Bradley Wong before his name came out. I kept telling you guys, hey, I know the suspicious neighbor. Now, I don't know if he's involved one way or another. I really don't. I find his actions to be suspicious. But so would I find like Ron Logan when he created an alibi in the Delphi case. All right. Mr. Wong could be creating some sort of distraction or making them look in a different direction for a completely different reason than having something nefarious done with the kids. I mean, we'll look at his rap sheet, which is another thing too. These folks that believe this person who claims to be Bradley Wong, they believe it. And he could be. I'm not saying he's not. I just doubt it. But they believe and they side with him and say, I side with Bradley because he talks in your chat and you're not even sure it's him. I mean, he could be anybody. I've done this before many times. I mean, heck, maybe boss man number one is me. I've created fake accounts on numerous occasions just to mess with, mainly it was the Pro Burgers, because I thought it was funny to go into their accounts, and I would change my name. I would put, something random, and I would say, hey, my cousin's friend's neighbor knows the investigator in this case, and they believe this about Brian Koberger. He was just the driver. I put that out there. I think like 6 different channels ran with it. All I did was put it in the chat room without saying a thing. So I don't know. Maybe you know what, Brad? If this is you, you know what? I'll invite you up here. I know you're in the comment section because I blocked you before. So I know you watch. So it's in the description. So if you want to jump on and you could correct me and correct the narrative. But if it is you, join us. Turn on your camera It seems like you like to talk a lot in a bunch of these channels. If this is you, I don't believe this is you though. I just don't think that he talks about himself using the word they. They didn't lie about the vehicle. Wouldn't it be we didn't lie about the vehicle? Now, again, he definitely could be him, and that's just the way he talks. I don't know. Like I said, in the Delphi case, Ron Logan completely made up an alibi. A lot of people were suspicious of him. Tons of people were suspicious of him. If I was watching it, I would have been suspicious of him too. 100%. A lot of people still are suspicious of Ron Logan. Created an alibi before the bodies were found, before Libby and Abby were found. So all eyes were on that direction. But why he was doing it was because he was drinking at a bar and he was violating his parole. So, if we were to take a gander, which is another thing, like I was mentioning, these folks will say there's inconsistencies. There's all these things, Daniel's a druggie, he's abusive. He's done drugs. He's a crazy person. He's a thief, whatever. And yet they're like, we side with Bradley, even though he's was arrested for being charged for breaking and entering, possession of 2 counts of property obtained by crime and 2 counts of theft under 5,000, also charged with possession of a controlled substance. And also apparently drives a light blue Subaru Outback at this time. A lot of people like to point out that people drive Subarus out there. I don't think it's very uncommon for people to drive Subarus out there. It's it's a rural area. I would assume that a lot of the 4-wheel type vehicles would be more prevalent out there. You probably see more Subarus than you would, front wheel drive or rear wheel drive vehicles, just because of the weather element and stuff like that. So I don't think it's anything crazy. Like, again, I strongly suspect that the kids wandered off. I do find it weird that Justin Smith and Bradley Wong are the only 2 people that supposedly heard something. It's been refuted, and this is disputed here, and this is the terms that they use. Nova Scotia RCMP disputes witness accounts in missing children case. I keep hearing this thing where people are saying, this means that they couldn't, that there just wasn't evidence enough, that they didn't find anything. And I'm like, no, that's not what this says. That is not at all what this says. This says that they surveyed the cameras and they couldn't find anything of what they were saying was true. This does not say that there wasn't footage of the area to confirm what they were saying. For those that are thinking that, that's what the statement would have said. Unfortunately, we don't have any cameras in the area to confirm or deny whether or not these things took place. So this goes on to say, Nova Scotia RCMP say that they have found no evidence to back up witness accounts of a vehicle driving back and forth in the early morning hours near the rural northeastern home where 2 young children went missing in May. Investigators conducted a thorough review. They conducted a thorough review of surveillance footage. Not that there was no surveillance footage to review. That drove me, that blew my mind when I kept hearing this and seeing this in my comment section. People saying, well, it's because they just didn't have the evidence to prove it. They didn't have the video. I'm like, no, that's not what it says. It says that they went back and looked at the surveillance to review it and found no evidence of what they were talking about. 2 big different stories. And going back to those that believe Mr. Wong just because they think he's talking to them, this is an inconsistency. This is a flat out lie. You have 2 guys that know each other. That's some pretty possible. I mean, I don't know about Justin Smith. I've only heard a few things. I haven't been able to find the articles like I've found on Bradley Wong on Justin Smith. So I'm going to keep the things that I've heard to myself when it comes to him. But you have 2 guys, possible questionable backgrounds at some point in their life. And now they're lying to police. And yet you're the ones that are willing to stand with them. Why? Because it fits your narrative. I think that's what it's more about, is it fits your narrative versus following the truth. Because at the end of the day, you guys know about Wong's background, but I don't hear any of you guys saying anything about it. I knew about Taylor and all the stuff that was happening with Daniel, and guess who brought it out? I did. I brought it out. I didn't hide from it. I didn't run from it. In fact, I told my Discord group, I said, hey, there's some stuff that's coming out about Daniel. We are about the truth here. We are about facts. And what we're going to do is we're going to report it. We don't hide from it. It looks bad on Daniel. He looks like he's a controlling boyfriend at the very least. And I think that it takes some more evaluation to looking into. We do have to understand that a lot of the things that how does this affect his drama? And, we also have to understand that this is a breakup and people were upset. She was upset because she thought that he was cheating on her. And I'm not going to get all into the drama of it anymore, but I didn't hide from it. I brought it out. I talked about it. I didn't keep it silent. I didn't just say, hey, I'm going to believe Daniel just because he talks to me. No, brought it out to you guys. We watched the videos of the situation so I can give you guys a clear view. We looked at both sides of things, including what Daniel said about, his kids saying that he had abused Jack and Lilly, which, by the way, we have to remember, when was this? And at what part of the investigation was this happening? And is it even true? Because if I was interviewing Daniel Martell and I was the investigator, and this was within the first 2 weeks of the investigation, and I knew that his baby mama's not letting him see his kids, dead set, I'd go in there and tell him that his kid said something to CPS or to us that pointed in his direction, just to get him to sweat, just to get him to move, just to see what he'd say, see what his response is, see what he would do, see if he'd slip. 100%. And so I don't know if that ended up being the case. All I do know is that was early on in the investigation, prior to July 16th, when RCMP came out and said that there was no criminal offense or criminal thing in nature or whatever, however they basically cleared him. So when you look at it from that aspect, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was. I swear to you, that's a tactic I would have used. I would have done it 100 out of 100 times if I was in that situation, just to see, if he makes a mistake, if he slips, if he says something. And so, all I know is that RCMP obviously was aware of that situation, and they investigated. And I would assume that if they found any evidence of him being abusive, they would have arrested him. Why not arrest him for those things? Even if it wasn't for the death of the two little kids. If it's not for, Jack and Lilly, as far as that goes, why not arrest him for the abuse? So, not saying it didn't happen, not saying it did happen. I don't know. It's a up in the air type of thing, I guess, but my assumption is that if it did happen, he would have been arrested and he would have been charged. Easy as that. All right, so let's continue this. So it says on here that the police found no evidence of any vehicle activity at the time, and such no driver has been identified, and the presence of a vehicle has not been substantiated as a key element in this investigation. So they go on to further even believe and say that even if there was a car, they don't believe that evidence would have been a key element in the investigation. I wonder why. I wonder if they have something that would prove to them, I don't know, maybe something in the morning. There's apparently some cameras, and I found out there's a few cameras in the area. Now, I went through this, and I was checking this out, and this was and this is the dispatch. This is the dispatch for the day, and this is the transcript for it. And about noon on May 2nd, they talk about doing a search of the residence again. A lot of people were questioning if they ever searched the residence. Within 2 hours, they were going to do it again. So twice within 2 hours to search the residence. And they were going to do a property search, property and residence search again. That's that copy. And just for everyone's awareness, based on the profile, the children could have traveled at least 6 kilometers. So keep that in mind. I think it's actually a lot further. And I think that may have been one of the reasons why they weren't able to capture or find the kids. I think they were focused primarily really close. And to a certain extent, the family not really knowing how long it had been that the kids had walked off or wandered off, in my opinion, probably hindered this. Had they had a wider opening, like of an hour, they may have said, hey, at this point, this is actually 2 hours later. Remember, this is at noon. So at this point, they think they could have walked, 6 kilometers. I mean, it could have been 9 or 10 if they factor in a full hour beforehand versus just 20 minutes with what they were being told. You know what I'm saying? And again, I don't think it's anything nefarious. I just think that, a lot of people say, oh man, this thing took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it's a few seconds or whatever. I mean, the biggest point is like Brian Koberger. A lot of people can't put it in their mind that he went into that house and took the life of 4 people in a matter of like 6 or 7 minutes. And, they can't fathom it. And I'm like, there's this guy in Australia that stabbed like 16 people, took the life out of 8 in an airport. No, in a mall. I think it was over 3 floors, did it in 15 minutes. And like 12 minutes of that was him running away from law enforcement. I was like, I don't know how slow you think that they were going. Brian Koberger was moving, but it was probably a lot faster than just kind of taking his time doing things. And so time can be kind of tricky to estimate without a watch or actually looking at anything for reference, or especially if you're not trying to keep a track of time. And so if that's not on your mind, like, oh, how long have I been sleeping? How long have I been searching? Those type of things, it's not going to be very accurate. But it goes on to say that campground, that's the KOA, it's across the road. And I'm assuming that this campground is Florida Campground because this is the one that's across the road from Daniel's house. And it says there are trail cams that can be found on the road from the staging area. Make contact with the owner, see if they have any footage. And so we got that there. Let's see. Let's go to page 87. And this is where they talk about it here, that they're being redirected to the command point at the Lourdes campground. And so there's apparently cameras there. There's trail cameras, and I think there's other types of cameras, some security cameras as well out in that area. There was also these are the other things that Bossman has said. This is one that I thought was kind of suspicious. He goes, there was next to none traffic that night other than D leaving, using an initial. When I first read that, I was like, man, that sounds like a true crimer. True crime folk use initials for everything. I'll throw out a few: R.A., D.M., B.K. I bet you know who all those people are, and they're all separate for separate cases. You know what I'm saying? So, initials kind of threw out to me this was a true crimer pretending to be Wong. I had said that before. This one, too, is kind of funny because he goes, I can't with Daniel, him blaming other people, including me. You see, the I can't with Daniel. The only people that I know to say that I can't with you or I can't are women. Like my wife says this, I can't with you. I can't do this with you. I can't this with you. I can't that with you. You know what I'm saying? So, I can't with Daniel, blaming other people, including me, the neighbor. It's like a weird thing to say. It's just really weird. I want to say that this is, I can't with you, the calling him by his initial and saying they didn't lie about the vehicle instead of we didn't lie about the vehicle. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't know. You guys want to believe that this is him and just because of some little words that they said, go for it. I don't believe it's him. Now, these are some cameras that are very close to the area. This is the same camera. I'm only going to show one. I'm not going to go into too much detail into where these are at, but these are from the area, and I'll tell you what time that these were taken. This one was taken at about 4:30 a.m., May 2nd. And so Wong and Justin Smith were saying that they heard vehicles around noon and 1. This was several hours later, about 4:30. And from what I understand is the direction that this truck is heading is towards a place where there's like where people go to work. And so this is, from what I understand, a work truck. Let's see. Yeah. When I read that, I was like, man, this seems like a woman. I mean, I don't think it's Wong. I put out the link. If you are Wong and you want to come out, it seems like you like to talk a lot, boss man. I'm more than happy to talk to you. More than happy to talk to you. Now, this one happened at 9:30 in the morning, heading down the road. This this camera is fairly close. I wouldn't say it's the closest camera. It's a little bit further out, but this is one that I'm okay sharing at this point. Just wanted to bring that out to you guys that there are cameras. I know a lot of people are saying, well, maybe they don't have cameras. No, they got cameras. They got a lot of cameras from what I understand. And this one was just one of a few that I have compared to what probably law enforcement has is probably a lot more. But for those that are wondering, and we'll look at a map real quick. Let's pull this up. Let's make this bigger. And so this is where Daniel's home was or is. And this is where Justin was staying on this campground. I just put this way back here because there's a building back here, but he could have been anywhere. Like let's go down here so we can kind of look. And apparently there's like trail cams throughout here. And so there's the opening, and he could have been camping along anywhere this way. And I don't know where the trail cams are in here, but there's apparently quite a few cameras here in this area. So I'll tell you where I believe there's cameras at that are close by. So there's some there, which is actually, I mean, it's not like super close, but it's not far away from Daniel's. I think Daniel's house is like right up here. I think I may have passed it. There it is. So it's just like a few blocks away. Wow, I got the sign. Hey, so this is, somebody told me there was like, check this out. So we saw the Jack and Lily pictures. Is this here? Nah. Somebody sent me a picture. Maybe it's not this intersection. It might be a different one. They're like, go check out Google Maps. There's like somewhere near here, you can see like a bunch of tire markings. I wonder where it was at. So I know there's one there, and I've heard that there's one somewhere around here by the railroad. I don't know where exactly by the railroad, but I know that maybe this house has some. I don't know. Maybe that house. I have no idea. Just speculation on my part from what I've heard from people, but that there's a camera apparently somewhere in this vicinity. I would say if I got to draw it out, it's a pretty big spot, but I've heard somewhere in there. And or actually, let me remove that. I hear there's cameras here. So I don't know where. I'm just, this is just kind of what I've been told by a couple of folks who kind of also told me where Justin was staying that night, and that there were cameras here as well, kind of facing towards the street and stuff. I guess there was cameras put there for trespassers. I don't know what Justin was doing. The people that I know who knew he was there and had been staying there for a couple of nights don't know why or how or what arrangements he had that he was allowed to be staying there. But one last thing that does kind of look weird is, not that, but that too, is if we search Justin Smith here. Cool, Justin. Why does it say that? It's interesting. All right, it says we got a call from Justin Smith, who lives close by where you guys are now. He said he can talk to members about any vehicles that passed Highway 289. Now, he could be just super helpful trying to help out. You know what I mean? That's a very good possibility. Here's the thing, though. Like this is at super early in the morning or this is the same day, 2:22. So a couple of hours after the fact. I'm sure he's gotten word. I know that the alert hasn't gone out, but seeing all the activity, I'm sure he's gotten word. Word is spread. Just interesting that his mindset goes to I can tell you about the cars that are passing by, and then later on, that's what his intel is. And he's not saying he's not saying, hey, I want to tell you about the car that was passing by last night. He's like, any cars that pass by. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that I found interesting is, so I talked to Janie about him. I was like, hey, the documents say that he's familiar with you and not familiar with Daniel and Malaya or the kids. And what she told me was like, well, her interaction, how she met Justin was that he helped moved, I want to say her RV on the property, or moved something on the property for her. And that at one point that Daniel and Justin had a conversation out in the driveway, that they talked. So she wasn't aware why he would say that, but food for thought. They had a conversation. Nothing crazy. She doesn't think that he did anything. She doesn't know. She and Daniel mindset are strong, set on that Malaya called her mom at 8:28 because that's what the documents say. That's new to them. So it was kind of like confirmation to a certain extent, like, oh, she called. That was like, hey, come pick up the kids. The coast is clear, or whatever. That was an indication. And that, she turned on the TV so that Daniel couldn't hear, and that somebody went into the house and picked up the kids and left. And they believe that also because she left the house and, blocked him, and her behavior, hasn't been, a lot of you guys, have found it suspicious. So, I mean, I don't understand why people would think that Daniel wouldn't find it suspicious, but, me personally, I like Daniel's activity or the stuff that comes out about Daniel. I find it suspicious, but at the end of the day, she went through the same, background investigation, polygraph test, the whole 9 yards with RCMP, and RCMP pretty much, specifically said that the stuff that they did were to eliminate her as a suspect. So, take that for what it is. But they think that that's what happened. And so regardless, when I try to talk about Smith or Wong, they're like, no, we really don't know anything about them, and kind of just don't want to talk about them, which is funny because like I think Wong, or if this is Wong, says somebody about blaming kids, including me, the neighbor, for his kids. Daniel never blamed him. So this person who's pretending to be Wong is coming out like somebody. Again, Daniel never blamed him. I don't want to say I blamed him, but I brought him up because, well, his name came up. And I was pointing out some of the suspicious stuff. Now, I'm not blaming him to the point where I'm saying he did something. I just think that he's acting very weird. I think he lied. I wonder to know why. I'm curious. Like I said, it could be a number of things. Supposedly he wasn't too thrilled with law enforcement near his property. With a background like this, with all the theft, and the thing is, they had to get a storage shed for the amount of stolen property he had. They had to rent one out, the RCMP. And so, when you have stolen items, and you're also, if you're still abusing controlled substances, then you probably don't want law enforcement on your property. And if you were doing something that had something to do with that, you might want to divert attention from yourself. And so I find that probably more than likely than them having something done with the kids. And I'll tell you why. The footprints, the boot prints, the boot prints were found, heading on a pipeline. Even law enforcement said that they were way out of the way. Daniel mentioned that they were in the mud. And so for him to have walked out there, or for somebody to walk out there and plant them, they would have had to have left their own footprints as well. So, and it was in an area off the pipeline. It wasn't like it was off the side of the road or something like that where it's going to be found, right? It's in the middle of nowhere. So to me, that tells me that the kids wandered off and they're probably still somewhere in the woods. But it doesn't shake the feeling that Is it possible that he came across them? I don't know. I can't say that. I cannot not say that. I would assume that if there was evidence for that, I would hope that the RCMP would be able to obtain it. I do know that it would be a lot more difficult to obtain it from him than it would be for Daniel. Daniel, it's easy to get warrants and things of that nature. The kids were under his care and custody when they went missing. And, he was also very cooperative. With Wong, you gotta, if he's not being cooperative, you really got to be able to cross your T's and dot your I's when it comes to getting a warrant and things of that nature. And I'm not sure if they have it outside of him possibly lying. I mean, I don't know if that's, and the other thing is too, I mean, maybe perhaps he could be inaccurate. He might be thinking of a different night. He might be remembering Wednesday night instead of Thursday night. Same thing could be with Justin Smith, and that could be a reason why they haven't arrested them for like lying. Because I know some people are going to say, well, if they lied to the RCMP, why didn't they arrest them for lying? I was like, well, I mean, they also could have been inaccurate. A lot of people get that confused with the inaccurate aspect and a lying aspect. Lying is knowing what you're saying is false. Being inaccurate is believing what you're saying to be true. It's just wrong. And so there's a difference there. All right. I wanted to bring up this video real quick. Let me do that. That just came out. Let me turn up the volume on this. Now, this was just dropped today, I believe, or yesterday. Let me see. The day ago. This is the grandmother of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. This is Belinda Gray. And she had a little short interview with local media. And so I wanted to play this and kind of give you guys my thoughts and opinion.
Lily is 6 years old. Jack is, he's going to be 5 years old this month.
Belinda Gray can barely speak through the tears, describing the children she hasn't seen in years.
The last time they were here, they were still basically babies. Lily was 4. She was such a carbon copy of me. She copied everything I did. And Jack was more sober. He was just crawling around the floor, learning to walk.
It's been 2 years since Gray last held Jack and Lilly Sullivan, and months since anyone has seen them at all.
Your grandchildren are what you leave this world. They're a part of you.
When Lilly and Jack went missing, Gray says she joined the search herself.
We started working our way up through the woods along a brook. And then we crossed over the brook. And we started coming back down through the woods.
For Gray, hope quickly turned to suspicion, especially after their mother left the area.
When I found out Malaya left, I knew there was no sense searching anymore. It started making me think, I don't think these babies wandered off.
She hopes police can bring her closer to the truth.
I hold them all accountable. I don't know how 2 kids can go missing.
RCMP say they combed through every possible lead, but Gray feels police could have acted faster.
I don't care what the criteria is for an Amber Alert. When you have vulnerable children missing, it should be an automatic alert.
Every day, Gray checks her phone, hoping for a message, a post, a headline, anything saying they've been found.
To see if there's any new family members coming out speaking. And that's off and on all day. That goes on right until I go to bed.
Along the 40-kilometer stretch in Lansdowne Station where 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan lived, cadaver dogs searched the woods and trails just a few weeks ago. RCMP say they came up empty-handed, but families say they're still holding out hope the children will be found soon.
Yeah, I feel for Miss Gray. I know that, she and Malaya and the kids, she hadn't seen them in a while, but that doesn't make it hurt less. She was still part of her family. They were still, her family. And I know that some people might say like, well, she could have gone, she could have done some, that's beside the point. Miss Gray didn't have anything to do with it, with the children going missing. There's no need to, attack her or anything like that. She's hurting too. You know what I'm saying? And I feel for her. She says that, she holds everybody accountable, and she doesn't understand how they, two kids could go missing. And, I get it. When I was in law enforcement, and we came across like situations where something bad would happen, whether somebody lost their life, whether somebody was missing, whether, a lot of different things. And the one common question that we got from the family was why. And no matter what answer we gave them, it was really not an answer that they were going to be able to comprehend or understand. And most of the time we didn't know. A lot of times it was in God's hands and those things. And so I just, I feel for her. I understand her, that she doesn't understand like how it could happen. Sorry about that. I got all of a sudden real itchy in my throat. Give me 1 second. And so to me, I mean, I get it. And there's never going to be an answer that's going to be satisfying outside of them being found alive and well. And, if the answer is not that, for the families, I mean, I feel for all of you guys. I've seen it many times where families turn on each other and things like that because of situations where there's questions and there's unansweredness. And, when there's a hole, so to speak, in the information, a lot of times people try to fill in that information with what they may think they know. And when you do that, sometimes if you're filling it with the wrong information, then you're obviously going to start looking in the wrong direction and start blaming in the wrong direction as well. Now, I'm not saying that's what she's doing. I'm talking about families in general. When there's a case where there's, unsolved answers, I'm talking about Malaya and Daniel turning on each other and everybody basically. I mean, there's members of Malaya's family who have turned on each other. There's members of, between Daniel and Malaya that have turned on each other. There's, Daniel and Darren have turned on each other at certain times, and they knew each other and stuff. So, when there's not an answer there, that maybe even when there is an answer, like if they find them in the woods, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to be able to accept that. And they're still going to blame, and they're still going to point fingers and still do these things. And I get it. I understand why, but it's just over time, I guess, with experience and stuff, you kind of understand those things. But, my thoughts and prayers go out to Miss Belinda Gray and everybody affected. It's, Janie, Daniel, and Malaya. And it's crazy because people say that, like, for instance, that I side with Daniel because he talks to me. I've never spoken to Malaya in my life. And it's not necessarily I side with her. I just believe what the RCMP are saying. And I believe that they're saying that she's not involved. And so same thing with Daniel. It's not that I side with him. I believe what the RCMP are saying, and I believe the evidence that they're putting out there. All right. I wanted to answer a couple of these questions that you guys may have. Put a couple of stars there. It appears that Mr. Wong chose not to join the live stream today. Midwest comes in with a membership for 9 months. Lobster coming in with $6.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Lobster. Happy Go Lucky says Justin Smith and his wife own a farm, Hilltop Homestead in Lansdowne. He wouldn't be in a campground that wasn't even open in May. Yeah, he's not with his wife no more. He hasn't been. And he has a mom too. And my question started to be like, why was he in a campground? Obviously, him and his wife broke up. Why couldn't he stay at his mom's? Was he going through something? Was there an episode that was happening? And if there was, that doesn't necessarily mean that he did something, right? But let's look at what his statement was. His statement was that he could hear what he thought was Daniel's car driving around. stop at the railroad tracks and come back and all this other stuff, right? So let's look at the map. This is where that hilltop farm, or this is either his farm with his wife way up here, which this is where Daniel's house is. So it's either he's way up here. Let me move you out real quick. And I'm not getting on you. I'm just letting you know. He's either way up here or he's way over here on this farm. But one of these farms is his wife's. One of them is his mom's. I can't remember which one it is. I want to say this is the wife's down here. No, that's the mom's down here and the wife is up here. But how in the heck is he hearing a car way over here in these two locations way over here? It don't make any sense. Don't make any sense at all. Now, if he was where even dispatch indicates, because it says that he was, pretty close by, that he could hear everything on 289, which is this road here, it would make more sense of him being right here, able to hear things, than him being way over here. Way over here. So I don't think so. See, because DT, a lot of people in the chat here and elsewhere are saying that Bossman is alluding to being Justin Smith, not Brad Wong. Same thing. Why would, unless he identifies as himself as a they, and he's saying they didn't, like even if we put this back into this, they didn't lie about the vehicle. Wouldn't it be we didn't lie about the vehicle? Using an initial. There was next to none traffic, which doesn't make sense, but there's next to none traffic that night other than D leaving. An initial, more of a true crimer thing instead of some, elderly or not elderly, older man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just, maybe he calls him D. He says he didn't know him in his documents and stuff like that. So I find it weird, but maybe. Then he goes, I can't with Daniel. And again, maybe he's taking that up. I know my wife says I can't with you. I can't with this. I can't with that. And the only people I've ever heard to say that is females. Not saying that males can't. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to be offensive if you're a male and you say it. I just, this doesn't sound like that. And then, including me, the neighbor. Well, if this was Justin Smith, then, he's not really a neighbor if he lives way up there or down here. The campground he could be, I guess. It just doesn't seem like this is him, in my opinion. I did put it out there. If you're Justin Smith and you want to talk, apparently you've been talking a lot too. You can join it. You know what? I'll do it again. One more time. Loud as you can. I'll put it in the live chat. If you are who you say you are, hit the link and we'll have a conversation. Like I said, I don't think you all did anything with the kids. I'm not as convinced as I am with, like, for instance, Daniel, Malaya, and Janie. For instance, I'm more convinced that they didn't have anything to do with the disappearance of the kids. I have a lot of questions for you, Mr. Smith and Mr. Wong. But I think the footprints kind of speak for themselves. But more than welcome to join. Let's see. But yeah, I don't think it's either one of them. I think this is somebody trying to pretend to be being them, and has tricked quite a few YouTubers into believing that that's who this person is. But hey, if you don't want to come on my show, go on theirs. You talk in the conversation, you talk in the chat. And so I'm sure they would love to have you on as a guest. You don't have to join mine, join theirs. And say, hey, I'm boss man number one. I've been out here talking all this. I've been saying this and that, talking about a black Rio 5-speed, all these other things that you've been saying. You're talking in the chat. What's the difference between that and going up on panel? So join them. You don't have to join me. Join them. I just don't think that that's who that is. Can we do a theory with drugs? I'll debate you. Yeah, join. We can talk about drugs. We can talk about a theory about drugs. Now, here's why a theory about drugs don't settle with me is because, well, what do you think he's doing? Do you think he's buying it or do you think he's making it? You know, is he selling it? And he's using his profits. Maybe he's the middleman. He's getting it from one dude, selling it to the public, keeping a profit. Like, what are the thoughts here? What are the thoughts? And then how do they fit with all the evidence? Because we have to factor in, if you're going to purchase drugs, there's a couple of things. You need money. You need a location. You need to set up that location. You need to meet. You need to plan together. Right now, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh man, they could have used the burner phones. They could have done this. Man, drug dealers and drug buyers aren't that covert. Like you're watching too much TV if you think that they're going to go to the effect. And even if they did, you got to buy minutes for the burner phone. So that way you can use it. So there's still a financial, proof of it going, that you can follow. There's a trail there. In fact, that's how they got Rex Humerman, because he was buying burner phones. They have him on camera walking into a store, purchasing a burner phone. That's not the only way they got him, but that's one of the ways they got him. They got him off a pizza slice that he threw away or whatever, probably because of an IgG thing, from the DNA that was probably left on one of the sacks that he had wrapped one of the bodies in. And so they did the IgG, come back to him, found out that he drove a green Avalanche, bada boom, bada beam. And then they got his information. They do a warrant for his financial records, and then they see that he purchased. They see that he purchased a burner phone from a place, and they were able to pull up the surveillance from it. They were also able to pull up his call advance time records and put him into that location because he had his other phone on him when he was making this purchase. There's a number of things. Like catching drug dealers and drug sell, like when you have an idea that this person's selling drugs, it's an easy thing to catch. It's not a hard crime to solve, especially if you have the ability to get the information that they had. Like, for instance, it's a little bit more difficult to, get somebody to turn over their phone and get a warrant and stuff like that, when it's a drug deal. But when you have missing kids and you're trying to find their location, it's a little bit easier to get some of this information. So if we had Daniel's phone, we would be able to know where he left, where he went, his messages, his WhatsApp messages, his encrypted messages, all those things would be pulled up. This is not a Brian Koberger forensic cloud database expert. You got to know who you're talking to as well. This guy from the country, rural part of Nova Scotia. Not saying that, he may know a bunch of stuff about electronic stuff. We saw a big old bag full of, stuff that he had that were electronic. But even if he was able to say, all right, well, they're going to pick up my phone, let me go in there and delete things. Well, that's evidence on its own as well. That's how they caught. That's one of the things that we're going to use against Brian Koberger, that there was history of deletions. And so if you go through his phone and you're seeing stuff deleted, I mean, come on now. Now you got something to interrogate, something to look at, something to go after, right? And so, you got to set up the buys. Now, are people standoffish at first when they're buying from their drug dealer or whatever? Probably. But, if you've known your drug dealer for a while, like supposedly Daniel did, then they're probably talking to each other like friends. Hey, what's up? I need to re-up. Can you meet me here? Yeah, I'll be there. I'm on my way. And then the drug dealer still takes like 45 minutes to get there or to meet you there. And you're just waiting in a parking lot or you're waiting at their house. Hey, I'm here. And yeah, I'm walking out, and they take forever. I've worked a lot of those type of cases. They're easy to solve because they're like that. Kids nowadays, they don't, their way of being covert is like, hey, want to go skiing? It's obvious what they're saying and what they're doing. It's not hard to figure out. if there was some sort of drug activity. If he was selling it, if he was making it, all right. Everybody likes to say that it's meth, right? Well, meth, you got to cook it. You got there's chemicals, which would you have to have there'll be a financial footprint behind that, or a digital trail behind that, of purchasing the chemicals. There's smells that are attributed to that. So if something happened to the kids Thursday night, Daniel and Malaya and Janie would have to have cleaned up the entire place, scrubbed it down, and somehow gotten the smell out of the place, and then put all the dirt back into it, all the trash back in, because their house wasn't like super clean or anything like that. I'm not saying it was dirty. What I mean is it wasn't like Brian Koberger cleaned his apartment type of thing. So, those are the things that would have to have happened for that to be the case. And so, to me, I just think that with the evidence that they have, or, the accessibility of his phone, his financial records, his GPS locations, all of those things, it would have made it very easy to find something. I mean, look at the Emmanuel Haro case, where his dad just pled guilty. They didn't have a body there. They were able to arrest him. And his parents, the Haros, were a lot less cooperative than what Daniel and Malaya have been, to an extreme amount. And it didn't take but a couple of weeks to arrest them. And so, given the amount of evidence and everything else, I mean, I guess we can pretend that anything's possible, but I just highly doubt it, that the drug theory holds any water. From what I understand, and Daniel was open with it, that he did do drugs in the past, but that he had stopped sometime around when, I guess, Meadow was born. And he hadn't been doing it. I don't know if that's 100%. I know that if he was doing drugs in the house, then there's a couple of cases that can be had against him. And I don't understand why they wouldn't charge him. If he was doing hardcore drugs in the house with the kids around him, I mean, that's, in my opinion, you can find something for endangering a child. You can get him for a lot of different things. There's a lot of charges that can come up about this, just so you can put the dude in jail, so that way you can pressure him and get something, get him to say something. But the dude has cooperated 100%, including giving a polygraph test. And that's the other thing too. So if something were to have happened on Thursday night, right, then Malaya and Janie must be in on it, because they heard and saw Lilly and Jack. Malaya said she saw Lilly pop her head in a couple of times. That's in the RCMP documents. Around the time when she turned off the TV at 8:20, or turned on the TV at 8:20. I apologize. And Janie said that she heard the kids as she was dozing off after her conversation with Ron at 8:48 in the morning. So those things would have been impossible to have happened if something happened to the kids and Janie and Malaya not be involved. So if something happened to the kids Thursday night, Malaya and Janie have to be involved. And so then now we have to look at these lie detector tests that both of them took and passed by different investigators, different machines with different questions. So, I guess, some may argue, one person might say, hey, I got, this person's a narcissist. All right, cool. He's a narcissist. He can fake it, but so can Malaya. And if you have two people who supposedly committed this horrific crime, and they can beat a lie detector test within a week without any training, or remember, they got their phones and stuff too, without searching things up on how to pass a lie detector test. And even if they did search it up, if it was that easy to pass it, to search it up within about 9 to 10 days and just practice that, how to pass a lie detector test or whatever the case may be, if it was that easy, why the hell would law enforcement even use them? And how in hell would they even be effective? The end of the day is they're inadmissible in court, but they're a very effective tool. And the reason why they're inadmissible in court is not to protect the state, it's to protect the defendant. Because I guarantee you, if Daniel got arrested, his lawyer is going to bring up that he passed a lie detector test. Now, if he failed it, guarantee you that wouldn't have nobody would have found out about that. And so take that for what it is. But yeah, if you want to join, I can debate you. I just know a lot that goes into drug offenses. I've investigated drug cases, many of them, made many arrests, drug arrests. So I know exactly what goes into them. I know exactly what evidence to go look for. I know exactly like all those things. So yeah, if you want, we can debate, and I just feel that the RCMP probably know a lot more than I do when it comes to those things, given today's technology and information. When I was in law enforcement, guys, this was like almost 15 years ago. So, technology and things like that have changed in that time. A lot has changed in that time. And so, I was there for a few years, and, I've talked about it before. When I started, we were using VHS cassette tapes when I first started. And, it was on the older cars. There was only like a handful. It wasn't like all of them. But when you're a rookie, that's what you get. So when I first started, that's what you got. The upper management and senior officers, they got the cool DVD players and all that other stuff. Me and the other guys that were coming in, because I think we were the last ones. The group they came in after us, they ended up they retired those cars by then. But yeah, I had an old ass car. Good times. But things have changed since then. And so, I know a lot of people would like to look at other cases that this happened in this case and that happened in that case, that happened 15, 20, 25 years ago, 40 years ago. And I'm like, yo, technology has changed. Things have gotten more accurate. Things you could have gotten away with like 10, 15 years ago, you're not getting away with today. Like those things don't exist. They don't coexist anymore. It's two different worlds, two completely different worlds. And so take that for what it is. But if you don't want to come on tonight, email me. And we'll set something up. This is heartbreaking, Was that the dad's mom? Yep, that is. Belinda blames Daniel and Malaya and Jane. Well, and she has a right to her opinion. She has a right to her opinion, and to a certain extent, like I've said, if somebody wanted to argue neglect or whatever the case may be, I really can't argue too much back because they were in the care and custody and control. I will say that kids do get out; they wander off. You can't be on top of your kid 24/7 or things of that nature, and sometimes things happen. I know that accidents happen. Like sometimes those accidents just happen, and there's nobody at fault. But I understand why some people might believe one way or another. And she believes that she has a right to her opinion. It seems like there's a lot there, and maybe perhaps there's some there because she didn't have the relationship she wanted with her grandchildren. It sounded like it'd been a couple of years, and that may have been because of Malaya. That may have been because of a number of reasons, right? I don't know. I wasn't there. I just hope that in time that she can forgive, and I'm talking about a lot of people, because when you hold hatred in and you hold grudges and you're mad at people and things like that, and it just can make your own life harder sometimes. And so forgiveness is a big part of a lot of things. So, but yeah, that was the biological dad's mom. Oh, you thought that? No, that was not Malaya's mom. This was the biological father's mom, who, he chose also not to be in the kid's life too, right? And that's not her fault, right? That her son chose not to be. I'm sure that if her son pushed the effort about, visitation and things of that nature, she probably would have had a better, more opportunities to see her grandchildren. But that's not her fault either. She can't control those things. and she's a human being, and she has a heart, and she's hurting, just like a lot of people that knew Jack and Lilly or know Jack and Lilly. Yeah. Ask Canadians about spelling again, using the Queen's English spell flavor, color, etc. Isn't that how Canadians spell the words type? Yes, that was the other thing too. I'm glad you brought that up, because the person who was commenting said spelled the word neighbor without the U. And I brought this up the last time we were talking about it, because I spoke to a couple of people who actually, I almost said something I probably should, who are from the area. And I was talking to them, and they typed the word neighbor with a U. And I said, hey, I'm just curious, do you always type it that way? And from what I understand, even with like Sunny from It's a Crime and Shame, that because she typed it with a U, and I know she's in a different part of Canada, but her phone and the person that I spoke to that's from Nova Scotia, their phone automatically puts the U in. It's like an auto spell thing. And I noticed that on the messages here, it says I'm the neighbor or whatever, me the neighbor. It's without the U. And so yeah. I noticed that. I noticed that too. That was one of my little clues. But yeah, there's folks that believe 100% that that's Bradley Wong or Justin Smith, mainly because they talk on their channel, or they talk with them in the live chat, and believe everything. Like I said, I asked about the train thing, how many times it passes by, because boss man number one was like, it passes by 3 times a day. So I was like, hey, I asked a few people. They go, it passes by once, maybe twice. So take that for what it is. Take that for what it is. Let's see. And I'll answer some of your questions. Please put a couple of stars in there. We'll be doing this for the next 10 minutes or so. How come Leia was allowed to leave the day of the search? I think she left the second day, and she talked to law enforcement about it. She was having what sounded like a nervous breakdown. There was an ambulance that showed up and things like that. So it probably had a lot to do with that. And, she was probably getting a lot of pressure from her mom and her mom's side of the family. There was arguments between Daniel and Janie and Malea's family. There was accusations in the driveway and things of that nature. And from what I've understand is that a lot of that resulted from also Malaya saying things to her family about Daniel and stuff like that, which I can't say are true or not true or exaggerated or stretched or half truths. I have no idea. But she was telling him things, and to me, it sounded like she was wanting out of the relationship. It sounded like she had plans to leave Daniel. Now, a lot of people are trying to connect the dot that her plans to leave Daniel somehow includes having the kids go missing. I don't know how those dots connect, but especially the kids that don't have a tie to Daniel legally, right? Meadow does, but not Jack and Lilly. So, I understand why people think that, but she was wanting to leave him and trying to look at her situation, right? She's a mom. She has 2 kids with Cody, and she has another child now with Daniel. And she just had the baby not too long ago. I think the baby's like 2 or 3 years old, so it's fairly new. And, now she might be leaving another situation. Now have 2 baby daddies and the whole 9 yards, being separated from them. I can see her planting the seed. Now, I don't know her or anything like that, but I can just see somebody in that situation start to plant the seed with their family that they want to get out of the relationship. And instead of being questioned or tried to be convinced to stay in the relationship, if they start saying negative things about the partner, maybe it's easier to transition and have support versus if she just said, hey, I want to leave and not say anything. Not saying that the things that she's saying is a lie or truth. I have no idea. Just saying that I think that she would plant those seeds so that she would have the least resistance when she decided to leave from her family. That way nobody tried to convince her to stay and stuff like that. And so you have these things that are being said to the family, and then the kids go missing. And so now if you put yourself in the shoes of the family or in the mother in Cindy, now you have your daughter who you believe what she's saying, and now you have the kids missing. So now you're connecting these dots and saying, all right, well, Daniel must have done something. He's a bad person, blah, 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 blah. The kids haven't been found. Ground search crew were here. They should have found them. They didn't. Daniel must have done something. And now if you have it in your mind of your Cindy that this person, Daniel, did something to the kids, are you going to allow your daughter to stay there? I know I wouldn't if I had it in my mind that that was the case, whether I'm right or I'm wrong. Right? I'm not going to take that risk. And so I think that is what happened in that moment, or in those moments. I think that's how it played out. And I think that her family, talked her into blocking Daniel and leaving him. I mean, I don't think it was a very hard thing to talk her into, because she was already planning on leaving him. And so, I just feel that that was the way it all went down. I mean, that's what it sounds like. If you start putting yourself in the positions of the persons who are involved and looking at things from their perspective, it kind of starts to make sense. Oh, I'm feeling great today. Thank you. I actually got it's kind of my medical stuff, so I don't know. I got my heart scan back. The plaque thing wasn't the best news, but it wasn't the worst news. So I'll find out more on the 4th with my cardiologist, but thank you. I appreciate that. Kent goes, I think these families turned on each other long before the kids went missing. That's very much possible. And I think that could have been the case. It sounds like it. And why would she leave if they thought they would return? Well, I think by this point, I think she thought somebody kidnapped him. And the reason being is she's up all night the first night, and she calls at 3 a.m. to think maybe Cody, the biological dad, took the kids. Now, why is she thinking that? She's thinking that because in her mind, she only dozed off for a few minutes. And in her mind, she only didn't hear the kids for a few minutes. And if they had just wandered off, because ground search rescue team were just around the corner at Lake Eden, I believe, trying to find a kayaker, and they were a really quick response time, that they would have found him, that day. And so I think she really does believe that somebody has him. So I don't know if she thought that was going to be a possibility. Daniel not being able to talk properly doesn't mean he's lying. He's a guy that's been crushed by a crazy and hasn't been given the tools that are required to be a great partner in life. I'll say this. I mean, he's got a way with his words. He talks a lot and he says a lot. And, when you talk to him and when you read his text messages, it comes out differently. And, I just think that there's some questionable things that he said, and done when it's come to, like, for instance, Taylor and stuff. Like, even though her intentions were not the best, and even though that her motivations for the relationship were to try to take advantage of Daniel still said the things that he said, you know what I mean? And, it's kind of like this. This is the way I describe it. If I were to go outside and I unroll the windows of my truck and I put a piece of jewelry worth $20,000 in the center console and I leave it there for the entire night, and if somebody goes into my truck and I leave it unlocked, if somebody goes into my truck, I made it easy for them to steal it. Doesn't mean that they should have stolen it. In fact, if they get caught and charged and arrested, they're still being charged and arrested for the same crime as if they broke the window and made entry into the vehicle. So just because the motivations of Taylor weren't genuine doesn't give Daniel the right to threaten her with CPS and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? No way. No way. I think that was childish. I think the whole situation was childish and full of drama, and really a situation that was it took eyes away from where it should be, which is Jack and Lily. And so I'm glad it's over with. I'm glad that thing is done and it's moved on. And I hope it's, we don't have to deal with any more of the high school drama anymore. All right. Put a couple of stars, guys. So that way I know you're talking to me. Let's see. Dixon comes in saying, curious if you heard Wade's interview and your thoughts. I have heard Wade's interview. And again, what all has Malaya said to them and how much of it was true, how much of it was it stretched, how much was it exaggerated, how much was it a lie, and how much is it that stuff that may have happened in the past that she's, I don't know. But I did hear it. And that's why I believe that in their mind, they didn't want Malaya there. And those were the reasons. And if I was them and I believe those things that they were saying, and again, there's a difference between being inaccurate and wrong versus lying and being untruthful, right? If I'm going based off the information that I'm given, and if the information is not 100% accurate, I can only go off the information that I have. And I think that's kind of their situation too. And then you have an outcome. So you have a thought and then you have an outcome. Your thought here is that Daniel's a bad guy, and this is what they're getting from Malaya before the kids go missing. And then the happening is the kids go missing, and now you have these thoughts and action, and now you have a mindset. And so and an idea of what may have happened, and it may not be accurate. It may be accurate. I don't know. I tend to believe what the investigation had, and then everything else that came about it. But I did hear it. It was interesting. It kind of put into perspective why Malaya didn't stay there and what the family thought about the situation. But thank you, Dixon, for your $9.99. I appreciate that. Lori comes in with $27.99. Janie deserves to be respected for everything she did for Jack and Lily. After all, she was the only neighbor. I like the way you put the U in there too. 100%. I think that Janie, Daniel, Janie, I think Janie for sure. Daniel, I got nothing, I think Daniel he woke up and the kids were missing, and his life turned upside down, and he's not a perfect dude, but I don't think he did anything nefarious to the kids. Janie, I think she moved out of her house and allowed Daniel, Malaya, and the kids to live in her house, and she got an RV in the back. You know what I'm saying? Like, she did a lot for them and this kid. So I 100% agree. And I don't blame, I don't think there should be this, hey, I side with this guy, or I don't think that these folks didn't do anything, so I have to be against these folks. I don't understand where that mindset comes from. I think they all are hurting, whether it's Janie or Belinda or Daniel or Malaya. They're all hurting, and it's okay to be friends with one, or to know one and know their pain, and also not hate the other people that are there, especially if we don't know what happened. Right. So for me, it's not about that. It's not about I believe Daniel, so I must automatically talk smack about Belinda or Malaya or any of these other folks that Daniel who don't side with or has had a personal issue with. It's not how I work. It's not what I do. And so they're all hurting, and I hope they can forgive each other and come together, because I think that's what Jack and Lily would have wanted. I don't think they would have wanted all this. I don't think Jack and Lily want people turning on their mom and their stepdad, or the dad that they knew. I don't think they'd be wanting so much hatred towards one part or another. I don't think that's what this is about. I don't think that's what it should be about. Just my thoughts. Rachel comes in with $9.99. Thank you, Rachel. One question: did Janie say mom was near end of the driveway with Meadow? Didn't you know here? Hold on, let me put this on the bigger screen. My eyes are starting to get dry, so to speak. One question: did Janie say mom was near end of the driveway Meadow on Hun? I didn't know what here. Yes, Friday she usually goes with bro, but she didn't see her night prior. So Janie told me that when she heard the dogs barking or heard the commotion, she went outside and she saw Malaya at the driveway. I don't know if it was the end of the driveway. It didn't sound like it. You know, the interview where she stood at didn't sound like it was at the end of the driveway. It was more towards the, I guess, towards the fence, you know, where the vehicles were parked at. It's kind of where it sounded like she was standing, and that she did also have Meadow on her hip. And on Friday, she did say that she usually went with her brother, but she didn't go that day, that she decided to stay, which is one of the reasons, like I said, why Janie they have the opinion that they do, is because she walked out and Meadow was in the driveway or Malaya was in the driveway with Meadow, and she wasn't yelling for the kids. She's like, if you thought that the kids just left, why aren't you yelling? And I get why people are suspicious, but she could have been in shock. You know what I'm saying? You know, she could have been in shock. You know, people act weird sometimes. And, you know, Brian Koberger case is a big example in that. People that they didn't call 911 for 8 hours after they saw the intruder. And a lot of people blamed them and went after them because of it. And they were just victims too. But yeah, she did say that she usually goes. Ron Mexico, you sent me an email. All right, I'll check that out here when I get off the show. Appreciate it. Let's see. I'm going to answer just a couple more. What would it take for the RCMP to get a warrant for Wong and Smith's phones to check text calls, whereabouts the night before the disappearance and the weeks after? So if I was in law enforcement and, if I was a judge and, you know, law enforcement came in, and this is under the rules in America. I don't know what the rules and the, you know, what you need for probable cause. You know, I don't know what the burden of proof is out there for a warrant, but if it was here, I would say, all right, you got a guy who's not allowed you to search his property or has been a little bit standoffish. If that's true, I don't know if it is, but I believe it to be. If that's true, I would say, hey, you gotta, and I think that RCMP kind of screwed up on this, because I would have done it. You got a blanket in a tree. This guy's been arrested. I'm hoping that because he's been arrested, his DNA is in the system. I'm hoping. Now, I don't know if he's been convicted. I know he's been arrested and charged. And I don't know how things go. I heard he's been convicted. And that he did some jail time. And so I'm hoping that they automatically take DNA samples out there and put them in a system like they do in America. And so I would say, all right, go test out that trash can, test out that blanket, see if anything comes back to him, and you got your warrant. That's what it would take for me, you know, to give a warrant like that. Or, all right, you got all these cameras around. Do you see his vehicle in the area? The advanced timing records, that shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. You should be able to get that. The advanced call timing records from all the phones that were connected to the towers in the area. That's probably easier to get. And maybe if there's something on that could say one thing or another, maybe like if, you know, you see his phone come in and out of service, you know, that might mean that if he had Wi-Fi, that he left his house and he was, you know, left his house at some point, it attached to the tower, and at some point, you know, and that just so happens to happen in the early morning hours, or maybe not early morning hours, between like 8:30 and 10 o'clock, then maybe perhaps you have something there to lean on. But I think it would be difficult. So the cameras have picked up the kids wandering off. I don't know if they actually pick up like if you're able to see something like kids walking off the side of the road, there's also, if they're off the side of the road, there's like a little embankment going down. So they could have been down there. You know what I mean? Out of view. And also the other thing is too, like when it comes to like 12, 1, 3, 4 in the morning, it's usually dark. And so you might be able to, the camera might be able to pick up light a lot better than it would like some kids walking in the distance during the day. So, I would hope so, but I don't think that there's cameras specifically on Daniel's house. I think they're a little bit of ways away where the Lourdes or Lorda or Lord's campground is. I think they're there. And I think that there's some that are kind of close to where Wong lives, from what I understand. And I think there might be some that where Wong lives, not exactly where he lives, but like closer towards the railroad tracks around there. I've heard there's some there. But can it pick up the little kids if they're like in a ditch area walking off the side of the road? Probably not. And why they were able to determine that there wasn't a car going back and forth is probably because they didn't see any lights, or probably if there's audio, Wong said he could hear the car going and coming. If there's audio there, they may not be able to have captured that audio either if it's close enough to have been in earshot. So I don't know. I haven't seen all the camera angles. I've seen just a few. I don't know all the cameras that are there. I just know that there's a couple. But I'm not saying that the neighbor's involved in the kid's disappearance, KG. I think I just said that I think that the kids have wandered somewhere off. And I said that it's weird that the neighbors are lying. Now, I'm not the one that brought up Wong's name. In fact, I never wanted to bring up his name. And I wasn't. It wasn't until his name was brought up and people started just saying, hey, this guy is saying all these things about Daniel and it's looking kind of bad. Well, I had to dig into who he was. I had to bring it out. I mean, at the end of the day, if Daniel gets arrested, let's just say Daniel gets arrested. Do you not think that Wong's going to be a witness if he heard these things? And if he's a witness, don't you think that, one, he's going to be questioned in this manner? And also, you have to ask, why is this guy lying to law enforcement? Law enforcement's coming up and saying that we dispute what this guy is saying. There is no evidence of it whatsoever. But again, I've not said once that he did anything. I've said, I think it's weird. I think it's suspicious, and I think it's odd. I think he's more suspicious than Daniel, but I still think that the kids wandered off. Good try, though. It wasn't Janie's place to be responsible for Malaya's children, and I do think she cared. I think she did care. I did as well. There you go. Thank you, Lori. I have not accused them of anything other than being untruthful. 100%. I've highlighted their background. I didn't arrest. I mean, I'm not making it up. I'm not making up lies about the people. All I've done is highlight the background and say that I believe that they're untruthful. Thank you, Lori. That's exactly what I was trying to say. All righty. Let's see. People are saying that. See, I mean, like I said, I don't know if Smith and Wong are involved. I think there might be something there. I don't know if it's, kidnapping kids, but I think there's something there. Good to see everybody. Good to see you. Somebody said that they owed money. Oh, here it is. They owed money. Let's look at that theory real quick. This will probably be the last one I look at. So they owed money. They got Daniel's phone. Like, they're not asking for the money at any point. through text message or anything like that. There's not any concern through his messages or anything to anybody else. Like, oh my God, I'm concerned because this person's threatening me, or I owe this person money. There's not like him asking for money, from other people like, hey, such and such is pissed off. I owe them money. Can you lend me money? Like none of those things happen. There isn't an attempt to gain the money that they owed by one way or another. There's a lot that goes into just saying something because it sounds good. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing. These are just some of the things that I've heard where people will say, oh, could have been drugs, could have been this, could have been that. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, well, let's break it down with what they have and how does that fit with the evidence that they have. And how is it that if there was evidence of those things, why weren't they arrested? Who's Daniel? It's not like he's an R&B singer. It's not like he's a lawyer's kid or an attorney himself or family members to a judge or to the chief of police or law enforcement of some, former nature. All these other reasons that he's not super wealthy, that he's hired an extremely, a fixer in Hollywood like David D4VD has, right? Where he can hire this attorney who's going to keep him out of jail until they have all the evidence that they need. Like none of those things exist in this case for Daniel, for him to have not been arrested for anything, absolutely anything. Like who is he that they wouldn't want to, that they would be cautious about doing anything with? I don't know how things work in Canada, but Daniel probably get a public defender, just the next person in line if he got arrested. And, he's not getting any special treatment. He doesn't have a wealthy family that's going to come in and get him a high-powered lawyer. Like none of those things exist in this situation. It's weird. It's crazy. I'll hear you out, Rachel. I find it odd that they used Boss Man 1 as someone wanting the people to think it's Brad Wong. I was going to make a profile just calling myself the real Brad Wong. And I was going to go into some of these chats and say things because I know about him and just say, oh, I'm the real Brad Wong. Boss Man's lying. And then I was going to say that something to the effect that, haters don't believe me or something. Just to see what these folks would do. But I haven't done it. Yet. But I do like having burner accounts and doing things. I'll be honest. I like to, I get trolled on. I like to do some trolling myself. I haven't done that in this case though. Not at all. In fact, my burner account is first name Jenna, last name Tolles. And there's an old lady with a Steelers gear on. And if you put those two names together, you know what it means. You'll know what it means. Could it be the wife? It could be. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think that at the wife, is there somebody called the wife here? I keep seeing the wife. What did your husband do? Who's the wife? Is there the wife here? Is Bossman blocked? Bowman is blocked. That's not fair. I don't know who Bowman is. Bossman's blocked because they were going crazy. But I put the link in. That link that I put in wouldn't stop you from getting in. Would not stop you. And let me rephrase this. I don't know if Bossman is blocked. My mods told me that they timed them out. So at the very minimum, I know that happened. So, but you can join. Let's see. See, look at how you write neighbors here too with a U. Are you from Canada? Because oh boy, didn't write it like that either. Boss man. What's your question? I'll see if I can find it real quick. But the funny thing is where it said, "I can't" with Daniel, and I was like, "Man, that's a lady. That's a lady. That is a lady." The "I can't" with Daniel, that told me everything I needed to know. I'm sorry, I am kind of going quick. Oh yeah, man, I'm like way behind. I'm almost trying to catch up. I'm gonna just go to the front, check my email. I will. You know what? I'll check it real quick, Ron. Let me see what's going on. And then this is gonna be the last thing I do. I keep saying that, and I end up not doing that. I didn't get out of that email. Let's go to the Drunk Turkey. Let's see. So Ron says, and I hope you're okay with me reading this. It says that he went out to see if Daniel's house could be seen from Wong's house. My observations is when I drove past Daniel's house, I was surprised how close Lansdowne Station Road was to his house. Maybe 150 yards past his house. I mean, like 3-minute walk for the kids. Then you turn on that road and it's a dirt road and it's just 150 yards up that road. There's a little bridge with a creek, which, thinking like a kid, this is, in my opinion, something that they would be drawn to play around. Speaking of things to play around, literally right on the other side of the bridge, there is a clearing with a lot of junk. Again, something kids would be drawn to play around. Kids' dream play area, really a bunch of discarded oil tanks, an abandoned speedboat, etc. You can see it on the street view in maps, really a 5-minute walk from Daniel's house. A lot of people think that it's like miles and it's far away. I'm glad you're bringing this up, that everything is pretty close there. It's in really close knit area. I continued up the dirt road incline until I believe I got to be Wong's house, probably another 400 yards up from that corner. A garage, lots of vehicles, including old damaged junkers. Once I got about 50 yards from the house, a very large, nasty-ass dog came charging off the property and going alongside my vehicle, barking and snarling. So I think it could be like a theory that the kids were attacked and possibly killed by an animal. This dog. I've been bit by a dog, man. Dogs can be crazy. I don't see the neighbor. I see the you here also on neighbor. Just kidnapping and killing the kids. But if his dog killed him, and then he could have gone to cover up mode. There still might be some holes, like the police weren't able to track to a crime scene. This was a pretty scary dog, though. Could he see Daniel's house from the house? There is no doubt that it is elevated from Daniel's house, but I couldn't ascertain with certainty because of his growling dog coming at the end at my vehicle. But I did check from a little further up the street at a higher elevation, and I don't think so because of the tall trees. But don't take that as gospel. Cheers, brother. Cheers, Ron. Thank you for that perspective. I appreciate that. That was one of the things a lot of people were trying to say. And one of the things that I thought that was suspicious was that Wong doesn't tell police that he saw Daniel, but he tells Justin before Justin goes to law enforcement. To me, that was kind of like he was trying to convince him to say what, trying to convince him that it was Daniel's car that he heard or saw or whatever the case may have been. Let's see. Christine says, have you watched Behavior Panel 4 Experts Detecting Deception? They say Daniel shows 0 signs of deception, so he's innocent in my mind. They're that good. I've not caught him lying to me about anything either. And I've tried to get him and, ask him questions. Sometimes the neighbor's wife is in the chat. I put the thing in the live chat. You're more than welcome to join if you are supposedly the neighbor's wife. I'm very suspicious of people coming in and saying that they're somebody, because anybody could do it. Anybody can do it. Be on the lookout. I might do one next, and I think I have enough information that I could convince a lot of people that I'm supposedly somebody in the neighborhood. And I think I could do a better job by putting a you and neighbors and a bunch of other things. But if you are truly the neighbor's wife, I'll do it one more time. Don't seem like you're afraid to talk. To be honest, the wife. I'm not even listening to the live. I'm just standing up for Brad. I'm not. Okay. Well, all right. All right, boss man 100, whatever. Do you know if they check the side of steep shoulders of the roads? From what I understand, yeah. I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. All right, just gonna make sure nobody put any live chat or super chats in. All righty, guys. With that being said, I'm gonna be getting out of here. I want to say thank you to everybody. Appreciate all of your all's conversation. I'll be back probably tomorrow night and see if anything else pops. I might take some calls the next time you see me. This tonight was just to those that claim that they are one person or another. All right, well, I call your bluff. Here's the link. Join. They didn't join. So take that for what it is. Kind of tells me it's not really them. Again, anybody can make. When I was covering the Brian Koberger case, somebody there was a person named Dave that he came out to me, and he had lived close to the house where the victims had lost their lives, and he had given me some information, and we used the fake name Dave, and some dude created a fake account saying the real Dave, and that's all they put is the real Dave as his name, and started saying things, and people would follow that like it was the gospel. And I'm like, what makes you think that? Like, really, just because they say they are who they say they are, you don't be that gullible. Don't be that gullible. You guys have a great night. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell. You guys know what to do. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.